The suitcase sitting on our bed looked like a coffin. Black leather, expensive. The one Vanessa bought for our honeymoon 5 years ago when we still pretended to love each other. Now she was packing it with the kind of care usually reserved for handling explosives, each piece of clothing folded with military precision. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "I'm taking a long weekend," she announced without looking up from her task. Her blonde hair fell across her face like a curtain, hiding whatever expression might have given away her real intentions. "Casey and I are doing that wellness retreat thing in Vermont I mentioned." I leaned against the doorframe of our bedroom, watching my wife of 5 years pack lingerie I hadn't seen her wear in 8 months. The red silk set, the black lace number with the tags still on it, the kind of underwear that wasn't meant for meditation and green smoothies. "Since when do wellness retreats require Victoria's Secret?" I asked, keeping my voice conversational. After 15 years in warehouse management, I'd learned that the best way to get information was to stay calm and let the other person hang themselves with their own rope. Vanessa's hands paused for just a second, the kind of tell that would have cost her a fortune in poker. "A woman likes to feel good about herself, Eddie. You wouldn't understand." Her phone, sitting on the nightstand, lit up with a notification. Heart emoji. Kiss emoji. The name Steve in bold letters. Not Casey. Definitely not Casey, unless Casey had undergone some serious changes since I last saw her. "Steve?" I asked, nodding toward the phone. Vanessa snatched it up faster than a pickpocket. "Wrong number. Spam." "Spam that sends heart emojis?" She turned to face me then, and I saw something in her green eyes that I'd been seeing more and more lately. Cold calculation. The look of someone who'd already checked out of the marriage but hadn't bothered to pack her bags yet. Until now. "Eddie," she said, her voice taking on that patronizing tone she used when she thought I was being particularly stupid. "If you've got a problem with me taking a weekend for myself, then maybe you should just get a divorce." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. Get a divorce. Just like that. Casual as ordering coffee or commenting on the weather. 5 years of marriage, 10 years together total, dismissed with the same energy most people use to suggest changing the channel. I felt something click inside my chest, not break. Click, like a lock engaging or a safety being removed. A decision I didn't know I was making until it was already made. "Don't wait up then," I said, my voice level as a carpenter's square. She zipped the suitcase shut with more force than necessary, the sound sharp and final. "I won't." I watched her grab the handle and roll it toward the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors we'd picked out together when we bought this house 3 years ago. The house I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford, pulling double shifts and missing dinners and family gatherings so she could have her dream kitchen and walk-in closet. "See you Sunday night," she called over her shoulder, not even turning around. "Sure thing, honey," I replied. But she was already gone, the front door slamming behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. I stood at the kitchen window, watching and waiting. 20 minutes later, a silver Tesla Model S pulled into our driveway. Not Vanessa's white Honda Civic. A Tesla, the kind of car that cost more than I made in a year. The driver got out. Tall guy, maybe late 30s, with the kind of expensive haircut and confident stride that screamed money. Designer jeans, polo shirt that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, shoes that looked like they'd never touched actual pavement. He didn't come to the door like a gentleman would. Didn't introduce himself like a friend of the family should. Just honked the horn twice like he was picking up a taxi fare. Vanessa appeared with her suitcase, practically skipping down the front walk. I watched her slide into the passenger seat, watched her lean over to kiss this stranger like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Watched the Tesla back out of my driveway and disappear down Maple Street, taking my wife and my illusions with it. I finished making my sandwich, turkey and Swiss on rye, same thing I'd eaten for lunch every Saturday for the past 2 years, and washed it down with a beer. Then I got to work. First stop, the computer. I logged into our joint checking account and transferred every penny to a new account I opened in my name only. $37,000. Money I'd saved working overtime while Vanessa spent her salary on clothes and spa treatments and apparently secret phones for texting her boyfriend. Next, I called Jim Morrison, my lawyer buddy from high school. He'd gotten fat and successful since our football days, but he still owed me for the time I'd covered for him when he wrapped his dad's car around a telephone pole senior year. "Jim, it's Eddie Rourke. I need to file for divorce. Monday morning, first thing." "Jesus, Eddie. What happened? You and Vanessa seemed solid last time I saw you." "She just told me to get one. I'm taking her advice." "That's cold, man. You sure you don't want to try counseling first? I'm sure. While I was on hold, I did some detective work. Vanessa thought she was clever, but she'd never been as smart as she believed. Her hidden second phone was in her jewelry box, tucked behind the earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary. The password was our wedding date, 061215, which would have been romantic if she wasn't using it to coordinate adultery. The text messages made my stomach turn. 8 months of planning, 8 months of, I can't wait to see you, and my husband doesn't suspect anything, and explicit photos I won't describe but will never forget. Simon Kroll, real estate developer, married father of 2, pillar of the community. The kind of man who probably coached Little League and went to church on Sundays while screwing other men's wives on weekdays. The messages went back to January. 8 months of my wife planning her exit strategy while I worked 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat. 8 months of late nights at the office and business trips and girls' nights that were actually rendezvous with her sugar daddy. My phone rang. Mrs. Larkin from next door. Eddie, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling, but I saw Vanessa leave in that fancy car. That's not her Honda, is it? Mrs. Larkin was 73 years old, lived alone since her husband died, and ran the Riverside Neighborhood Facebook group like a military operation. 3,700 members, all hungry for gossip and drama. She was also the kindest person on our street and had brought us casseroles when we first moved in. No, ma'am, it's not her car. But thanks for keeping an eye out. Is everything all right, dear? You sound upset. Everything's fine, Mrs. Larkin, just fine. I hung up and smiled for the first time in months. Let's see how Vanessa likes a real surprise. By midnight, I'd accomplished more than I had in the previous 6 months of marriage. All of Vanessa's belongings were packed into garbage bags and stacked neatly on the front porch. I'd changed the locks on all the doors, canceled her credit cards, removed her from the car insurance policy, filed the paperwork to remove her name from the house deed, something I could do since I'd paid the down payment and made every mortgage payment from my account. I also printed out every text message, every photo, every piece of evidence of her affair, organized it all in a neat folder labeled Exhibit A, and scheduled a meeting with Jim for Monday morning. Sunday night was going to be very, very interesting. Saturday morning found me at the Rusty Anchor, the kind of dive bar where the coffee tasted like cigarettes and the regulars had been sitting on the same stools since the Carter administration. It was the perfect place to meet my cousin Frankie, partly because he practically lived there, and partly because nobody would think to look for either of us in a place that respectable people avoided. Frankie slid into the booth across from me, his bulk making the old vinyl creak in protest. He'd been a bouncer at 3 different clubs before settling into construction work, and he still looked like he could throw a grown man through a window without breaking a sweat. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting, signaling Rita, the bartender, for coffee. Feel worse. Vanessa's cheating. Frankie's face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, and finally a grim satisfaction. He'd never liked my wife, though he'd been polite enough to keep his opinions to himself. Mostly. You sure? I mean, really sure. Not just suspicious? I showed him the screenshots I'd taken from her phone. He studied them like he was reading a crime scene report, his expression getting darker with each message. This Simon guy, Frankie said finally. I know him. Kroll Development, right? Bought up half the waterfront last year, pushed out 3 family businesses to build those ugly condos nobody can afford. Real piece of work. Rita appeared with coffee refills and the kind of knowing look that came from 20 years of bartending. Rita knew everyone's secrets in this town, occupational hazard of working in a place where people came to drink away their problems. You boys talking about Simon Kroll? She asked, leaning against our table. That snake's been sniffing around Vanessa for months. Brings her to the Skylark Motel every Tuesday like clockwork. Always orders the same room. 237, the one with the kitchenette. Tips like a cheapskate, too. Every Tuesday. Vanessa's late nights at the office. I felt something cold and heavy settle in my stomach like a stone. How long has this been going on? I asked. Since winter sometime, maybe January. I only know because my nephew works the front desk at the Skylark, and he mentions it because Kroll always pays cash and acts like he's James Bond or something. What else do you know about him? Rita grinned, showing teeth stained by 30 years of cigarettes. Honey, I know everything about everybody in this town. Simon Kroll's got a wife named Patricia, 2 kids in private school, and a mortgage on a house that costs more than most people make in 5 years. He's also got a gambling problem that he thinks nobody knows about, and his business partner, Derek Martinez, has been asking questions about missing money. Missing money? Word is, some of their development projects have been coming in way over budget, but the extra money isn't going where it's supposed to. Derek's been doing some digging. I felt the first stirrings of a plan. Where's his office? Downtown. Glass building on 3rd Street, top floor. Why? Research. Frankie and I spent the next hour planning what he called Operation Payback, and I called giving Vanessa exactly what she asked for. By the time we left the Anchor, I had a complete dossier on Simon Kroll and a strategy that would have made Sun Tzu proud. First stop, downtown surveillance. I parked across from Kroll Development and waited. Sure enough, at 11:30 a.m., Vanessa's Honda pulled into the parking garage. She was supposed to be at a spa in Vermont, getting her chakras aligned or whatever nonsense she'd fed me. Instead, she was meeting her boyfriend for what I assumed was a pre-trip rendezvous. I followed them up to the 3rd level of the garage, staying far enough back to avoid detection but close enough to get clear photos with my phone. They didn't even try to be discreet, kissing against his Tesla like teenagers at a drive-in movie, his hands all over her in ways that made my stomach turn. I took pictures, lots of them, from multiple angles. Then I got creative. Simon's Tesla was parked in his reserved spot like a silver trophy, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I'd brought my toolbox from the truck, 40 years of mechanical knowledge, and a desire for poetic justice. First, I zip-tied the drive shaft. Not tight enough to cause damage, but enough to create a noise that would sound like the car was dying every time he tried to drive it. Then I stuffed shrimp shells into the air conditioning vents. They'd start to smell in about 6 hours, and the odor would be impossible to locate or eliminate. Finally, I let the air out of all 4 tires. Not slashed, not damaged, just deflated. I wasn't a vandal. I left a note under the windshield wiper. From the loyal husband, enjoy the ride. Back home, Frankie helped me with the next phase of the operation. We hacked into Vanessa's work email using the same password she used for everything, our anniversary date. The woman had no imagination. Look at this, Frankie said, scrolling through her sent messages. She's been charging hotel rooms to the company. Says they're for client meetings, but look at the dates. Every Tuesday for the past 6 months. The same days Rita had seen her at the Skylark Motel. Vanessa had been billing her affair to her employer, claiming business expenses for her adultery. We should send this to her boss, Frankie suggested. Not yet. I want to save that for the grand finale. Instead, we scheduled a calendar invite for all her coworkers. Vanessa's Secret Lover Weekend, details inside, with a link to a photo album I'd created featuring the highlights of her text message history. Nothing explicit, just enough to make it clear what kind of business trip she was really taking. You're evil, Frankie said, but he was grinning as he clicked send. I'm thorough. The calendar invite was scheduled to go out Monday morning at 9 a.m., right when everyone would be checking their emails and planning their week. By 9:05, the entire office would know exactly what kind of wellness retreat Vanessa had taken. Sunday evening, I was sitting in my recliner reading Stephen King's Needful Things. Seemed appropriate given the circumstances, when Vanessa's Honda pulled into the driveway. I watched through the window as she got out, looking relaxed and satisfied in a way that made my skin crawl. She tried her key in the front door, tried again, started jiggling the handle like that would somehow make the new locks recognize her. I opened the door holding the divorce papers Jim had prepared. Trip went well? I asked conversationally. Because the story's just getting started. Vanessa stared at the papers in my hand, then at the garbage bag stacked neatly on the porch, then back at me. Eddie, what the hell is this? It's what you asked for, a divorce. I filed the paperwork Friday night. You can't just throw me out of my own house. Actually, I can. House is in my name only. Check the deed if you don't believe me. Her face went from tan to white in about 3 seconds. My clothes? Bagged and tagged. Your credit cards are canceled, bank accounts are frozen pending the divorce proceedings. Oh, and I canceled your cell phone too. You bastard, you can't do this to me. Watch me. She stood there for a long moment, probably trying to process the fact that her carefully laid plans had just exploded in her face. Then she pulled out her backup phone, the one she thought I didn't know about, and started dialing. Simon? It's me. Eddie knows. What do you mean you can't talk? What's wrong with your car? I smiled and closed the door. Monday morning brought the kind of autumn weather that made living in New England worthwhile. Crisp air, clear skies, and the satisfying knowledge that my ex-wife was probably waking up in a very uncomfortable situation. I was shopping for groceries at Mackenzie's Market, the kind of small-town store where everybody knew everybody and gossip traveled faster than the internet when I ran into them. Vanessa and Simon, standing by the organic vegetables like they were playing house. Vanessa was wearing the same clothes from yesterday, the designer jeans and silk blouse she'd worn for her spa weekend. Her hair was unwashed, and she had the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd spent the night on a couch. Simon looked even worse, if that was possible. His expensive polo shirt was wrinkled, his face was unshaven, and he kept glancing around like he expected the police to jump out from behind the produce display. "Eddie!" Vanessa spotted me first, her voice sharp with panic and something that might have been shame if she'd been capable of feeling it. I pushed my cart over, nice and casual, like running into your cheating wife and her boyfriend was just another part of the weekly routine. "Vanessa. Simon." Simon tried to look confident, but his Tesla story was already all over social media thanks to Mrs. Larkin's Facebook group. Someone had posted a video of him trying to start his car while it made sounds like a dying whale, and it had been shared 400 times in 12 hours. "We need to talk," Simon said, puffing out his chest in what I assumed was supposed to be an intimidating gesture. "About what? Your property development business? I hear you're having some financial difficulties." His face went red. "That's none of your concern." "Neither is my wife, but that didn't stop you." A small crowd was starting to gather. Mrs. Patterson from the deli counter, the Kowalski twins from down the street, even Father Martinez from St. Mary's, probably shopping for the church potluck. Perfect. Vanessa stepped between us, probably sensing that this wasn't going to end well for her. "Eddie, stop making a scene." "A scene?" I laughed loud enough to turn more heads. "Lady, you haven't seen a scene yet." I grabbed Simon's shopping cart, filled with organic kale and free-range chicken breast, the kind of pretentious food that cost twice as much as the regular stuff, and shoved it into a display of Campbell's soup cans. The crash echoed through the store like a gunshot. Cans rolled everywhere, customers scattered, and the store manager came running from the customer service desk. "Eddie!" Vanessa raised her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist mid-swing and leaned close enough to smell the desperation on her breath. "You wanted drama? Let's give them a show." Mrs. Larkin appeared from the next aisle with her phone out, recording everything. She'd probably started filming the moment she spotted us together. "This is assault," Simon sputtered, trying to gather up his scattered groceries while maintaining what was left of his dignity. "No," I said, releasing Vanessa's wrist. "This is justice." I turned to address the growing crowd of onlookers. "Ladies and gentlemen, my soon-to-be ex-wife and her boyfriend. They've been having a torrid affair for 8 months while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for the house she's now been evicted from." The crowd murmured appreciatively. Mrs. Patterson shook her head in disgust. Father Martinez crossed himself. "You're insane," Vanessa hissed. "I'm honest. There's a difference." Simon tried to salvage the situation. "This is between us, Rourke. Leave these people out of it." "You left yourself out of it when you decided to sleep with my wife in a motel room every Tuesday for 6 months. More murmurs from the crowd. Someone, I think it was young Tommy Kowalski, actually applauded. The store manager finally reached us, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. "Folks, I'm going to have to ask you to take this outside." "No problem," I said. "I was just leaving anyway." I pushed my cart toward the checkout and didn't look back. Behind me, Vanessa was still shrieking Simon's name while he lay on his back in a lake of Campbell's chicken noodle, clutching his groin like it might run away. The overhead muzak kept cheerfully playing Walking on Sunshine as if the universe itself was laughing. By 3:17 p.m., the video was live on Mrs. Larkin's Facebook group, Riverside Neighborhood Watch and Gossip, with the caption, "Local cheater gets what's coming to him." NSFW language 600 shares by dinner time, 2,000 by Jeopardy. That night, the construction god smiled on me. Frankie and 6 of his biggest, drunkest crew guys rolled up to Simon's McMansion in 3 pickups. They brought 2 cartons of eggs, 4 cans of biodegradable red spray paint, and the righteous fury of men who'd watched their buddy get humiliated for months. Homewrecker in 4-foot letters across the double garage door. Loverboy on the mailbox with a big pink heart. Adulterer stenciled down the sidewalk like a crime scene outline. Frankie texted me a selfie in front of the masterpiece, hard hats tilted, beers raised. "Washable in 6 months," he wrote. "Memorable for 6 lifetimes." Tuesday, 5:42 a.m. I stopped by Simon's house on my way to the warehouse. Mailbox was already open. People in that neighborhood never lock anything. I dropped in 1 very ripe mackerel wrapped in Sunday's newspaper and a note in block letters. "Karma smells like this." By the time he opened it at noon, the July heat had done its work. Patricia reportedly threw up in the hydrangeas. Wednesday, I forwarded Derek Martinez a tidy little PDF. Screen grabs from Vanessa's old laptop showing Simon funneling $23,000 from the Oak Ridge condo project into a sportsbook account, and another 18 into client entertainment at the Riverside Inn. Derek called me an hour later, sounding like he'd aged 10 years. Police are on their way. Thanks for the heads up, Eddie. I owe you a case of the good stuff. He didn't owe me anything. Watching Simon's empire implode was payment enough. Thursday, 2:07 p.m. I was chaining up a pallet when Simon came roaring into the warehouse lot in his now egg-splattered BMW. He looked like he'd slept in a suit made of regret. Tie gone, shirt half tucked, hair doing an impression of a bird's nest. He marched straight up and grabbed my shirt with both fists. "This ends now, Rourke." I'd been waiting for this moment for weeks. My phone was already recording in my breast pocket, lens peeking through the gap between buttons. "Does it?" I asked, calm as Sunday morning. "Because I'm just getting warmed up." He swung, a wild, sloppy roundhouse that any warehouse guy learns to spot from the next Tuesday. I leaned back, his momentum carried him past me and straight into the open commercial dumpster we use for scrap metal. He landed with a symphonic crash of rebar and broken pallets. I stepped over, offered a hand like a gentleman. He took it. I hauled him up, making sure the phone caught every angle of his bloodshot eyes and the new ketchup stain on his collar. "Next time you want to fight someone's husband," I said, brushing metal shavings off his shoulder, "pick one who doesn't deadlift engines for fun." I posted the video at 6 p.m. sharp. Mrs. Larkin shared it to the group with the caption, "When you come for the quiet guy at the warehouse," it hit 10,000 views before the sun went down. Comments were pure poetry. "Bro picked the wrong final boss. Dumpster is his natural habitat now. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." Friday, Simon's BMW got booted in his own driveway. Bank repossession. Patricia changed the locks and left his clothes in hefty bags on the lawn with a post-it that read, "Good luck, lover boy." The county DA filed formal charges. Embezzlement, fraud, forgery. Bail hearing set for next week. Saturday morning, Vanessa showed up at my door at 7:12 a.m., wearing sunglasses big enough to hide a hangover and a black eye. She'd clearly spent the night somewhere that didn't have mirrors. "Eddie, please. They suspended me without pay. Simon's going to jail. I have nothing left." I leaned against the doorframe and sipped my coffee. "You've got the clothes on your back and the lessons you refused to learn. That's more than you left me with." She tried tears. They looked rehearsed and tired. "I'll do anything. Counseling, church, whatever you want. I want you to feel, for 1 week, what I felt for 8 months. Then we'll be even." I closed the door. Saturday night. Founders' Day Festival. I saved the best for last. I texted Simon from the burner. Fountain. 8 p.m. Bring Vanessa. Last chance to keep the rest of the evidence private. They showed up because drowning people clutch at razor blades. Half the town was already there for fireworks and funnel cake. Mrs. Larkin had prime seating. Rita brought the entire bar staff. Even Father Mike stood at the edge of the crowd, hands clasped, probably praying for someone's soul. Simon spotted me first. "You want to talk?" "Talk." "Actually," I said, raising my voice just enough to carry, "I wanted to announce that I bought your house this morning. Foreclosure auction, cash deal. Sorry about the smell in the mailbox." The crowd rippled with delicious horror. Simon turned the color of expired milk. Vanessa made a sound like a stepped-on cat. Then I stepped aside and let physics do the rest. Simon lunged. I pivoted. He flew, arms pinwheeling, straight into the fountain. The splash that soaked the first 3 rows. Vanessa shrieked and tried to grab him. He yanked her in after him. For 30 glorious seconds, they flailed like overdressed seals while phones recorded in 4K. I raised my beer to the crowd. "Give it up for the happy couple, folks. They're leaving town history now." Applause, whistles. Someone started chanting, "Lover boy, lover boy." Simon tried to climb out, slipped, fell again. Vanessa's fake eyelashes floated away like dead spiders. Derek Martinez pushed through the crowd, grinning ear to ear. "Simon, police are waiting at the gate. Something about a warrant?" Simon bolted, dripping, leaving Vanessa kneeling in 6 inches of green water, mascara rivers down her cheeks. She looked up at me, finally understanding. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but I'm finally free of you." She stumbled out of the fountain alone. Nobody offered a hand. Nobody ever would again. The fireworks started, red, white, and blue explosions lighting up faces that would be telling this story for decades. I stood in the middle of my friends, my neighbors, my town, beer getting warm in my hand, and felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Vanessa wanted a new life. I gave her one, just not the one she ordered. And somewhere in the dark, Simon was running out of road. Trips canceled, kids. Enjoy the walk. Friday afternoon, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Eddie, it's Casey. I need to tell you something. Casey Williams, Vanessa's best friend since college, the one who was supposedly on the spa weekend that never happened. I'd been wondering when she'd surface. Oh, what's on your mind, Casey? Can we meet somewhere? I don't want to do this over the phone. We met at Denny's, the kind of neutral territory where nobody would think to look for either of us. Casey looked nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup and glancing around like she expected Vanessa to materialize from behind the pie display. I've been feeding you information, she said without preamble. What? The spa weekend, the motel meetings, her work schedule. I've been telling people what Vanessa was really doing because I'm sick of her treating everyone like garbage. I leaned back in the booth, trying to process this revelation. You've been helping me? She's been using me as her alibi for months, Eddie. Every time she wanted to meet Simon, she'd tell you she was with me. I finally got tired of being part of her lies. Why didn't you just tell me directly? Casey laughed bitterly. Because I knew you wouldn't believe me. You had to see it for yourself, so I made sure the right people knew where to look. It turned out Casey had been the invisible hand guiding the entire collapse. She was the one who'd slipped Rita the Tuesday motel address with a quiet, "You didn't hear this from me." She was the one who'd texted Mrs. Larkin, Black Tesla in Eddie's driveway at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, just so you know. She was even the one who, 6 months earlier, had leaned over Vanessa's shoulder while she set a new phone password and murmured, "Oh, your anniversary? That's so sweet," planting the seed she knew I'd eventually harvest. The final straw, Casey said, stirring cold coffee with a spoon that didn't need stirring, was Mrs. Patterson. 71 years old, worked at that company for 32 years, and Vanessa framed her for stealing $200 from petty cash so she could pocket it for Simon's birthday weekend in Napa, then laughed about it at happy hour, said the old lady was too poor to fight back. I decided right then Vanessa was going to learn what fighting back feels like. I stared at her across the Denny's table, the same booth where Vanessa and I used to split moons over my hammy on Sunday mornings. So you've been playing double agent this whole time? I've been refusing to carry water for a sociopath, Casey corrected. Big difference. Monday, 9:17 a.m. Vanessa's boss's boss called her into the executive conference room. Someone, nobody knows who, wink, had emailed the entire C-suite an itemized spreadsheet. 8 months of client dinners at the Riverside Inn that somehow always coincided with Simon's Amex being declined, plus the infamous calendar invite titled Deep Tissue Massage with S that auto-accepted for the whole marketing department. By 10:05, she was on unpaid leave, badge deactivated, escorted out by security while her coworkers pretended to be very busy. Simon's Monday was worse. Derek Martinez, his business partner and Patricia's cousin, opened the company books and found a second set that would make an Enron accountant blush. By noon, the police were at Simon's office with a warrant. By 2, the state real estate board had suspended his license pending felony fraud charges. By 4, Patricia's attorney, a woman known locally as the Widowmaker, had filed an emergency motion freezing every account Simon had ever breathed on. Tuesday, 8:42 p.m. The Rusty Anchor. I'm nursing a celebratory IPA when the door bangs open and Simon staggers in, tie askew, eyes bloodshot, smelling like a distillery fire. He spots me and the room temperature drops 10 degrees. "This is your fault," he roars, brandishing a half-empty bottle like a club. "You ruined my life." Conversation dies. Pool balls stop rolling. Even the jukebox seems to choke. I stay seated. "You ruined your life when you decided my wife was a company perk. I just turned on the lights." He lurches forward. The bar holds its breath. Rita appears like a guardian angel in a black apron. "Simon's sweetheart. I need a big, strong man to help me move a keg in the stockroom." He's drunk enough to believe flattery still works. He follows her like a lamb. Click. Rita turns the deadbolt, dusts her hands, and announces to the bar, "Well, butter my butt and call me a biscuit. Looks like we've got ourselves a lock-in." The place explodes. Phones come out faster than guns in a Western. Within 6 minutes, Locked Lover Boy is the top trending topic in the Tri-County area. We give him 61 minutes, long enough for panic, short enough to avoid kidnapping charges. When Rita finally finds him, he's squatting over the mop bucket, pants around his ankles, crying for his mother. The photos hit Facebook before his belt's buckled. Wednesday, 7:08 p.m. Doorbell. Vanessa stands on the porch like a ghost of herself, hair greasy, mascara flaking, wearing the same silk blouse that's now part of the permanent wrinkle collection. Behind her, the back seat of her car is piled high with laundry baskets and hefty bags. She's been living in it. "Eddie," she whispers, voice cracking, "I made a mistake. Please. We can fix this. Counseling, new start, anything. I look past her to the garbage bags I'd neatly stacked on the curb last week. Her entire life reduced to 33 gallons at a time. Mistake? I echo. You told me to get a divorce. I'm just respecting your decision. I didn't mean... You meant every word. You just didn't think I'd listen. Tears now, big and theatrical. I have nowhere to go. There's a shelter on Maple. They take walk-ins. I'm your wife. Were, I correct gently. Past tense. As of the papers you'll find on the kitchen counter tomorrow morning. She reaches for me. I step back. The trip's over, Vanessa. Take your free ride somewhere else. She sobs something incoherent. I close the door, turn the deadbolt, and go back to my book. The house is quiet in a way it hasn't been in years. No lies humming under the floorboards, no secrets pacing the hallway. Outside, I hear her car start, stall, start again. Then the sound of tires peeling away into whatever's left of her life. Inside, I turn the page and keep reading. For the first time in forever, the story is mine again. Saturday night was the annual Founders Day Festival in Riverside Park, the kind of small-town celebration where everyone turned out for food trucks, live music, and the chance to catch up on a year's worth of gossip. It was perfect for what I had planned. I sent Simon a text from my burner phone. Meet me at the park at 8 p.m. Bring Vanessa. Last chance to settle this quietly before I release the rest of the evidence. They showed up because they were desperate. Vanessa had been staying at Simon's place since Patricia kicked him out, but now they were both homeless. No jobs, no money, no friends, and a rapidly shrinking list of options. I was waiting by the fountain in the center of the park, surrounded by half the town. Mrs. Larkin was there with her phone, naturally. Rita had brought her entire bar crowd. Casey showed up to watch the finale of the drama she'd helped orchestrate. Even Father Martinez was there, probably hoping to witness some kind of redemption. The festival was in full swing. Kids running around with cotton candy, teenagers trying to impress each other at the ring toss, adults nursing beers and pretending to enjoy the local band's cover of Sweet Caroline. The perfect backdrop for the final act of this particular tragedy. You wanted to meet? Simon said, trying to sound tough despite the fact that he was wearing the same clothes from yesterday and looked like he'd been sleeping in his car. I wanted to share some good news, I announced, loud enough for everyone within 50 feet to hear. I bought your house, Simon. His face went from red to white to green in the space of 3 seconds. What? Foreclosure auction was this morning. Turns out when you're facing criminal charges and your business partner freezes all the company accounts, the bank gets nervous about your mortgage payments. I was the only bidder. The crowd that had gathered around us murmured appreciatively. Someone, I think it was Tommy Kowalski again, actually started a slow clap. Congratulations, I continued. You're officially homeless. Vanessa stepped forward, her face twisted with rage and desperation. Eddie, you can't do this to us. This is insane. This is justice. You told me to get a divorce, remember? I'm just being thorough about it. Simon lunged at me then, probably thinking he could salvage his dignity with violence. After 8 months of planning his revenge, he'd apparently learned nothing about thinking ahead. I sidestepped him easily. 40 years of warehouse work keeps you quick on your feet, and he crashed into the fountain behind me. The splash was magnificent, sending 3 feet of murky water cascading over the crowd. Kids squealed with delight. Adults jumped back, laughing. The Channel 7 news crew, covering the festival, swung their camera toward the commotion. Simon tried to stand up, but his expensive Italian shoes had no traction on the algae-covered bottom of the fountain. He fell backward, taking Vanessa with him when she tried to help him up. Now they were both sitting in the fountain, soaking wet and humiliated, while 300 people watched and recorded every second. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced to the crowd, my ex-wife and her boyfriend. They're leaving town tonight, so let's give them a proper send-off. The crowd actually applauded. Mrs. Larkin was recording everything for Facebook. Rita was laughing so hard she was crying. Casey gave me a thumbs up. Simon tried to climb out of the fountain, but every time he got close to the edge, he'd slip on the wet concrete and fall back in. Vanessa was screaming about lawsuits and assault charges, but nobody was listening. She was just another wet, angry woman ranting about consequences she'd brought on herself. "This is assault!" she shrieked from the water. "I'm calling the police." "With what phone?" I asked. "You're 3 months behind on the bill." Derek Martinez pushed through the crowd, grinning like Christmas morning. "Simon, the police are looking for you. Something about missing client funds and falsified expense reports." Simon's face went through several more color changes. He scrambled out of the fountain like a drowning rat and ran, leaving Vanessa sitting alone in the water. "Simon," she called after him, "don't leave me here." But he was gone, disappeared into the crowd like the coward he'd always been, leaving her to face the consequences of their choices alone. Vanessa finally climbed out of the fountain, mascara running down her face in black streams, her designer dress clinging to her like a wet shroud. She looked around at all the phones, recording her humiliation, at the faces of people who'd once been her neighbors and colleagues, then finally at me. "I hate you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the festival noise. "I know," I replied, "but I stopped caring about your feelings the day you told me to get a divorce." She walked away through the crowd, dripping fountain water and leaving a trail of shame behind her. Nobody helped her, nobody offered her a ride or a towel or even a kind word. She just walked into the darkness beyond the festival lights, carrying nothing but her soaked purse and the knowledge that she'd destroyed her own life. I turned to Mrs. Larkin, who was still recording. "Make sure you get her good side in that video." Mrs. Larkin grinned, showing teeth that were probably older than some of the people in the crowd. "Already posted it, dear. 4,000 people have watched it in the last 10 minutes. The crowd started to disperse, but people kept coming up to shake my hand and pat my back. Rita brought me a beer from her booth. Frankie appeared with a huge grin and a funnel cake. "Damn, cousin," he said. "That was beautiful. Like watching Shakespeare, but with more public humiliation." I looked around at the festival, at my neighbors and friends, at the life Vanessa had tried to throw away for a few months of excitement, with a man who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. "Trip's canceled," I said, raising my beer to the night sky. Next time, she should remember that actions have consequences. The fireworks started a few minutes later, exploding in brilliant colors over the park while the band launched into a surprisingly good version of Celebration. I watched them with my friends and neighbors, finally at peace for the first time in months. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the festival lights, my ex-wife was walking away from the best thing that had ever happened to her. She'd asked for a divorce, and I'd given her exactly what she wanted, along with a few extras she hadn't expected. She should have kept her mouth shut.